Imagine if Jesus only gave loaves of bread and fish to the people who had a job or who weren't immigrants or had the same sexual orientation or political opinions as himself. While it's true we're not all in the Westboro Baptist Family Church, too often we still get it wrong. If you've ever looked at Christianity and thought, this doesn't seem to match up to what they claim to believe, you're not losing it. Whether you're in the pews every Sunday, exploring what faith might mean, or just trying to make sense of it all, we need to have a proper chat about what's gone sideways with how faith shows up in the world. Look, I'll be honest with you. I've been that person. Someone who talks about love and grace and then catches himself more concerned with being right than actually loving people. It's mortifying when you notice it. Maybe you've experienced this too. Someone talks about divine love, universal compassion, following Jesus, and then turns around and supports policies that genuinely harm vulnerable people. Or maybe you're like me, calling yourself a Christian, but sometimes cringing at Christian behavior, especially online. Here's what I've noticed across the board. People from all backgrounds talk about love, compassion, and justice. But somehow we've created this weird separation between our spiritual beliefs and our social responsibilities, like they're two different things entirely. Whether your spirituality comes from church, meditation, philosophy, or just your own moral compass, we all seem to struggle with the same thing, making our beliefs actually matter in how we treat people. We all want our values to actually mean something, right? So let me share an ancient story that might surprise you, especially if you think religion is just about personal salvation and staying out of politics. This comes from a fella called Nehemiah, and honestly, his approach to leadership and justice might challenge everything you think you know about faith. This story hits different because it's not just some abstract parable. A leader discovers his own community, his own people, exploiting vulnerable people. Predatory lending, debt slavery, systematic oppression, all the things we see in the world today. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of just thoughts and prayers or some political doublespeak nothing statement, he demands concrete change. And throughout the whole thing, he humbly includes himself in both the problem and the solution. So Nehemiah is rebuilding Jerusalem's walls, yeah? Big project. Everyone's meant to be pulling together. But then he starts hearing complaints, not from outsiders, but from his own people, crying out against each other. The wealthy people are charging interest to the poor people, taking their fields as collateral, even enslaving their children when they can't pay. The poor are literally crying out against their own community. And Nehemiah, he becomes very angry. Now, this isn't some religious leader going, I'll pray about it, and leaving it there. He confronts the nobles and officials publicly. He makes them return seized property, stop charging interest, swear an oath before the priests. He even shakes out his garment, saying, may God shake out every person who doesn't keep his promise. What struck me about this, Nehemiah doesn't separate his faith from his politics. His relationship with God actually compels him towards justice. This isn't despite his spirituality, it's because of it. And here's where it gets interesting for anybody exploring their faith. Nehemiah's God isn't just some distant cosmic force who's concerned with ritual and personal piety. This is a God who gets angry at oppression, who sides with the vulnerable, who demands action, not just intention. Whether you believe in God or not, you have to admit that's a compelling vision of the divine. Here's what properly blew my mind when I really looked into this. Every major spiritual tradition teaches the same thing. You can't claim to love the divine, the universe, or the highest good while ignoring suffering you could help prevent. Buddhism talks about compassion for all beings. Secular humanism insists human dignity and social responsibility are inseparable. But Christianity, Jesus didn't just teach this principle, he lived it completely. When he said, "What you do to the least of these, you do to me, he was making the most radical claim possible, that God himself identifies with the oppressed. Now, you might find some wisdom in Buddha's compassion or in Kant's ethics, and maybe you should, but Jesus goes further. He's saying the divine doesn't just care about justice, the divine is present in the cry for justice. And that's fairly revolutionary, isn't it? There's this verse in Proverbs, whoever oppresses a poor person insults their maker. Whether you see that maker as God, nature, or the universe itself, there's something here pointing to a divine concern for the vulnerable. So here's the question for all of us, regardless of spiritual background. What are we actually doing about justice? Are we building religious walls while ignoring oppression in our communities? Are we seeking spiritual growth while staying disconnected with social responsibility? Are we rejecting organized religion but also avoiding organized action for justice? Now, I know some of you are thinking, that's political, not spiritual. Or, I focus on personal growth, not social issues. Or maybe, religion should stay out of politics. But here's the thing, and this is what Nehemiah shows us. Separating spirituality from justice is actually the problem. When your beliefs don't change how you treat people, what are they really worth? I'll be straight with you. I've explored different spiritual paths, and they all have wisdom and compassion. But Christianity makes this wild claim that God became human, lived among the oppressed, and literally died rather than perpetuate systems of injustice. Now, if that's even remotely true, it changes everything about how we should treat people. Look, I'm not standing here with all the answers. I'm figuring this out too. But here's what I keep coming back to from Nehemiah's approach. First, acknowledge that we're part of the problem. Notice he says in the story, let us change this. We're all caught up in systems that create injustice. Second, actually listen to those crying out. Don't assume you know what people need. Center the voices of those who have been marginalized. And third, take concrete action. Move beyond good intentions. Use whatever influence or platform you have, no matter how small or how big. Fourth, include yourself in the solution. Don't just point fingers. Ask how you can be part of the change. For Christians specifically, social justice isn't liberal politics. It's what happens when we take our gospel seriously. But for anyone exploring spirituality, maybe organized religion fails because we've forgotten that genuine spirituality demands organized action for justice. Here's my challenge. Whether you pray to Jesus, meditate, or just try to be a decent human, find one concrete way to act like Nehemiah this week. Just one thing. Maybe it's voting differently. Maybe it's volunteering somewhere. Maybe it's having an uncomfortable conversation with family about how we treat people who are different from us. I come from a county in Ireland that's famous for being the only one in Ireland that voted no on marriage equality. Now, I hold traditional views on sexuality, but I don't think exclusion from legal structures is the answer. We don't make gluttony illegal. We don't outlaw being excessively wealthy, although maybe we should. We don't ban not loving your neighbour. Sometimes love looks like letting people live their lives with dignity, even when we disagree with them. Here's what I've learned. If Nehemiah's story moves you, if this vision of God who fights for justice resonates, maybe it's worth exploring what Christianity could look like when it's actually lived out. Because honestly, the world needs more people who believe in a God worth following. Maybe the answer isn't choosing between having faith or doing justice. Maybe it's discovering a faith that demands justice. And if you're already there, maybe it's time to show others what that looks like. Look, if this kind of conversation, digging into ancient wisdom for modern problems, wrestling with faith, that actually changes how we live, if that's something you want to spend more time watching, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to build a community of people who aren't content with faith that stays safely in a Sunday morning box. And honestly, creating content like this, doing the research, having the conversations, pushing back against shallow Christianity, it takes time. If you're getting value from these videos and want to support a more in-depth content, there's a Patreon link in the description. Even a few quid a month helps me spend more time creating rather than worrying about the bills. No pressure, but if you can, it genuinely makes a difference. Give this video a thumbs up if it made you think, even if you disagreed with parts of it. The algorithm needs to know that nuanced conversations about faith matter to people. Now, here's what I really want to know in the comments. What's your spiritual background? And what's one concrete action you're going to take this week? I'll be reading every comment and responding where I can, because whether you're a Christian or exploring spirituality or just trying to live with integrity, we're all figuring out how to make our beliefs actually matter in a broken world. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, whether they're struggling with faith or whether they're the kind of Christian who makes other people cringe, share this video with them. Sometimes we all need a little push towards living what we claim to believe. My name's Jacob, and this might be church.